Jack tightened his grip on the controls as alarms blared inside the cockpit. The ship shuddered violently, throwing him against the seat restraints. He muttered a curse under his breath, trying to steady the vessel as it hurtled toward the surface of Sci-Fi 7. The planet loomed ahead, its swirling purple and green atmosphere ominous and unwelcoming. Jack had heard stories about this place, tales of strange creatures, dense jungles, and an alien civilization that few humans dared to approach. Now he was about to crash land there. The malfunction had come out of nowhere. One moment, everything was fine. The next, the engine sputtered, and warning lights flashed across the dashboard. Jack tried rerouting power, adjusting the thrusters, anything to stabilize the ship. But it was no use. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't something he could fix mid-flight. His only option was to brace for impact. The ground rushed up faster than he expected. Trees, tall, twisted things with glowing leaves, flashed past the windows before the ship slammed into the earth with a deafening roar. Pain shot through Jack's body as he was tossed around like a rag doll. When the shaking finally stopped, he sat dazed, blinking away the stars in his vision. Smoke filled the cabin, and the acrid smell of burnt metal stung his nose. Slowly, he unbuckled himself and stumbled out of the wreckage. Sci-Fi 7 was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The air shimmered faintly, as if alive, and the forest around him hummed with an eerie energy. Strange vines hung from the trees, pulsing with soft light. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of unseen creatures, felt alien and unsettling. Jack took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. He needed to assess the damage and figure out how to survive until help arrived. As he surveyed the area, something caught his eye, a flicker of movement near the edge of the clearing. At first, he thought it might be an animal, but when he squinted, he saw it was something else entirely. A small figure lay crumpled on the ground, partially hidden by thick roots. Cautiously, Jack approached, his heart pounding. It wasn't human. The creature had smooth blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Its limbs were long and delicate, and intricate patterns etched into its flesh pulsed gently, like veins of light. Jack knelt beside the being and hesitated. Was it dangerous? Should he even get involved? But then he noticed the blood, dark, almost black, and the shallow rise and fall of its chest. Whatever it was hurt. Against his better judgment, Jack decided to help. He tore a strip of fabric from his shirt and pressed it against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. The creature stirred weakly, letting out a soft whimper that sounded almost human. Before Jack could do more, a low growl echoed through the forest. He turned sharply, scanning the shadows. Something was watching them. Moments later, a pair of glowing eyes appeared between the trees, followed by another and another. Large, insect-like creatures emerged from the darkness, their armored bodies glistening menacingly. They moved slowly at first, circling Jack and the wounded alien like predators sizing up their prey. Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing. He didn't have any weapons, just his wits and whatever scraps he could scavenge from the crash site. Grabbing a jagged piece of metal from the wreckage, he stood protectively over the alien. "Come on, then," he muttered, gripping the makeshift weapon tightly. The creatures lunged, and Jack swung wildly, determined not to let them take the fragile being lying at his feet. For hours, the battle raged. Jack fought with every ounce of strength he had, dodging snapping jaws and slashing claws. By the time the predators retreated, exhausted or disinterested, Jack was covered in cuts and bruises, but the alien was still alive. Breathing heavily, he collapsed beside it, unsure of what to do next. Little did he know, saving this mysterious creature would change his life forever. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the thick canopy above, Jack stirred awake. His body ached from the fight, and his makeshift weapon lay discarded nearby, smeared with dark streaks of alien blood. He glanced at the wounded creature lying beside him. Its glowing patterns had dimmed, flickering weakly like a dying light bulb. Jack knew he couldn't stay here. The predators might return, or worse, there could be other dangers lurking in this strange forest. He rummaged through the remains of his ship, searching for anything useful. A few ration bars, a half-empty canteen of water, and a small toolkit were all that remained intact. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Jack stuffed the supplies into a tattered bag and turned his attention back to the alien. Moving carefully, he fashioned a sling from torn pieces of his shirt and used it to carry the creature. He didn't know where he was going, but staying put felt like a death sentence. The journey was slow and grueling. Every step seemed to take him deeper into the heart of the alien jungle. Strange plants loomed overhead, their leaves shimmering faintly as if alive. Occasionally, Jack heard rustling sounds in the underbrush, small creatures darting away or larger ones watching silently from the shadows. Despite the beauty around him, the forest felt hostile, as though it resented his presence. Hours passed, and the alien began to stir in his arms. At first it was just a faint twitch, but soon its eyes fluttered open. They were wide and golden, filled with both fear and curiosity. The creature let out a soft sound, somewhere between a hum and a chirp. Jack stopped walking and gently set it down on the ground. "Easy," he said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. The alien tilted its head, studying him intently. Jack reached into his bag and pulled out a ration bar. Breaking off a small piece, he held it out cautiously. The alien hesitated before reaching out with one slender hand. Its fingers brushed against his briefly, sending a strange tingling sensation up his arm. Then it took the food and nibbled on it gingerly. Whatever the substance was, it seemed palatable enough, because the alien ate more eagerly after the first bite. Despite the language barrier, Jack tried to communicate. He pointed to himself and said, "Jack." Then he gestured to the alien, hoping it would respond. After a moment, the creature touched its chest and made another melodic sound. Jack smiled faintly, repeating the sound back. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they rested, Jack noticed something odd about the alien's glowing patterns. They weren't random. They shifted and changed in response to the creature's emotions. When it was calm, the lights pulsed steadily. When it grew agitated, they flared brightly. Jack wondered if the patterns held some kind of meaning, perhaps even a form of communication. But without any way to decipher them, he could only guess. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. Jack froze, looking around nervously. The alien tensed beside him, its patterns flashing rapidly. From the trees ahead, a low growl echoed, a sound far deeper and more menacing than anything Jack had heard before. Slowly, a massive shape emerged from the shadows. It was one of the insectoid predators, bigger than the others he had fought, with jagged spines running along its back and razor-sharp mandibles dripping with venom. Jack grabbed the alien and pulled it behind him, his heart pounding. He scanned the area frantically, searching for an escape route. The predator lunged forward, forcing Jack to dive out of the way. Rolling to his feet, he picked up a fallen branch and swung it wildly, trying to keep the beast at bay. The alien clung to him tightly, its tiny frame trembling with fear. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a new sound split the air, a deep, resonant, horn-like call. The predator froze, its head snapping toward the source of the noise. Moments later, armored figures burst into the clearing. They were tall and imposing, their bodies covered in sleek, metallic exoskeletons that gleamed in the sunlight. Each carried weapons that crackled with energy, and their faces were hidden behind masks etched with intricate designs. One of the figures stepped forward, raising a hand. The predator immediately backed away, retreating into the forest. Jack lowered his makeshift weapon, unsure whether these newcomers were friends or foes. The leader approached, studying him closely before turning its gaze to the alien in his arms. With deliberate movements, it extended a clawed hand toward Jack, who hesitated for a moment before handing over the injured creature. The figures communicated among themselves in a series of clicks and whistles, then motioned for Jack to follow. Exhausted and out of options, he complied. As they walked, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being led somewhere important, and that his life was. The group moved quickly through the jungle, their armored forms cutting through the dense foliage with ease. Jack struggled to keep up, his legs burning from exhaustion and his mind racing with questions. Who were these beings? What did they want with him? And most importantly, what would happen to the alien he had saved? The creature was cradled gently in the arms of one of the warriors, its glowing patterns now dim but steady. Jack couldn't help but feel a pang of worry as he watched it. He had risked so much to protect it, and now he was entrusting its safety to strangers. As they walked, Jack noticed strange symbols carved into the trees and rocks along the path. They glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the steps of the warriors. At first, he thought they were just decorations, but then he realized the symbols reacted to the presence of the alien. When one of the warriors carrying the creature passed by, the markings brightened momentarily before fading again. It was as if the forest itself recognized the being's importance. After hours of travel, they finally reached their destination, a massive city that seemed to rise out of the jungle like a living thing. Towering structures made of smooth, iridescent material stretched high into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with colors that shifted depending on the angle of the light. Bridges of light connected the buildings, and streams of smaller aliens moved about, their movements graceful and deliberate. The air hummed with energy, and Jack felt completely out of place among the grandeur. The warriors led him to a large platform at the center of the city, where a group of even taller aliens awaited them. These beings wore elaborate armor adorned with intricate designs, and their masks were more ornate than those of the soldiers. One figure stood out above the rest. She was enormous, her presence commanding attention. Her armor gleamed with golden accents, and her mask bore a crest shaped like a crescent moon. The other aliens bowed deeply as she approached, and Jack instinctively followed suit, lowering his head. The leader stopped in front of him, studying him silently. Jack felt exposed under her gaze, as though she could see straight through him. She extended a hand, and one of her attendants placed a small device into her palm. She activated it, and a soft hum filled the air. To Jack's surprise, the device began translating her words into broken but understandable English. "You have done something remarkable," she said, her voice deep and resonant. "You saved my daughter." Jack's eyes widened. "Your daughter?" He stumped, glancing at the injured alien, who was now resting on a hovering stretcher nearby. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just some random creature he had stumbled upon. It was royalty. No wonder the warriors had treated it with such care. And no wonder they had come to rescue it. The queen nodded slowly. "She is safe because of you. For that, I am grateful." Her tone softened slightly, though it still carried an edge of authority. "But your actions have placed you in a unique position. Saving a member of the royal family is not something we take lightly." Jack swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "I didn't know who she was," he admitted. "I just saw she was hurt and needed help." The queen tilted her head, considering his words. "A rare act of kindness from an outsider," she murmured. "Perhaps there is more to your kind than we assumed." She gestured for him to follow her, and Jack obeyed, feeling both awestruck and uneasy. They entered a vast chamber filled with glowing crystals that floated lazily in the air. The space felt alive, humming with power. The queen took a seat on a throne-like structure made of interwoven vines and metal, motioning for Jack to stand before her. Around them, other aliens gathered, watching curiously. "My people will ensure you are cared for while you remain here," the queen said. "But know this, gratitude comes with responsibility. You will learn more in due time." Jack nodded nervously, unsure what responsibility meant in this context. Still, he couldn't deny the sense of wonder he felt. This alien world was unlike anything he had ever imagined, and somehow, He had become part of its story. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same again. Jack stood awkwardly in the grand chamber, his mind racing as he tried to process everything that had happened. The Queen's words echoed in his head. Asterisk gratitude comes with responsibility, asterisk. What did that even mean? He glanced around the room, taking in the glowing crystals and the towering aliens who observed him with quiet curiosity. Despite their intimidating presence, no one seemed hostile. If anything, they appeared intrigued by him. The Queen leaned forward slightly on her throne-like seat, her golden armor catching the light. "You must have questions," she said, her voice calm but firm. Jack hesitated, unsure where to begin. Finally, he spoke up. I don't understand why you're doing all this for me. I was only trying to help." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly behind her mask, though Jack couldn't tell if it was out of suspicion or thoughtfulness. "My daughter is precious to our people," she replied. "She carries the future of our kind within her. By saving her, you have earned not only my gratitude, but also the respect of my court." She paused, then added, "But such acts are never without consequence." Before Jack could ask what she meant, another alien stepped forward, a tall figure clad in sleek, silver armor. This one carried a tablet-like device, which it held out toward Jack. The screen displayed images and symbols that shifted rapidly, accompanied by soft beeping sounds. The Queen gestured for Jack to take it. "This will help you communicate while you are here," she explained. "It will translate our language into yours." Jack accepted the device cautiously, holding it in both hands. It felt warm to the touch, almost alive. He pressed a button experimentally, and a robotic voice spoke in halting English. "Welcome, honored guest." He blinked in surprise, then looked back at the Queen. "Thank you," he said, though the words felt inadequate. The Queen nodded approvingly before turning her attention to the warriors who had brought Jack to the city. She issued a series of sharp commands in her native tongue, and the soldiers immediately dispersed. One of them returned moments later, carrying a bundle of clothing and other items. They placed these at Jack's feet and bowed deeply. "These are for you," the Queen said. "You cannot walk among us dressed as you are. Change into something more fitting, and then we will speak further." Jack looked down at his torn and dirty clothes, realizing how out of place he must look. With some hesitation, he picked up the bundle and followed a servant to a smaller side chamber. Inside, he found a mirror and changed into the new garments. The outfit consisted of loose, flowing robes made of a silken material that shimmered faintly, along with a belt adorned with tiny beads that glowed softly. When he caught his reflection, he barely recognized himself. The transformation was startling. He looked almost regal. When Jack returned to the main chamber, the Queen studied him again, her expression unreadable. "Better," she said simply. Then she rose from her seat and descended the steps of her platform, stopping just a few feet away from him. Up close, her size was even more imposing, and Jack had to fight the urge to step back. "You saved my child," she said, her tone softer now. "And for that, I owe you a debt. But understand this. Your actions have bound you to us in ways you may not yet comprehend. You will remain here until we decide how best to honor you." Jack's heart skipped a beat. Remain here? For how long? He opened his mouth to protest, but stopped himself. Arguing with the Queen didn't seem wise, especially when he was still so completely at her mercy. Instead, he nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, his voice steady despite the unease building inside him. The Queen regarded him for a moment longer, then turned and motioned for him to follow. She led him through a series of corridors lined with glowing patterns similar to those on her daughter's skin. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, as if breathing. Eventually, they arrived at a large door carved with intricate designs. It slid open silently, revealing a luxurious room filled with plush furniture and shimmering fabrics. "This will be your quarters," the Queen announced. "Rest, eat, Tomorrow, we will discuss your role here." With that, she turned and left, leaving Jack alone in the opulent space. As the door closed behind her, he sank onto a nearby chair, overwhelmed by everything that had transpired. He was trapped in an alien palace, surrounded by beings who viewed him as both a hero and a guest, but also as someone bound by unspoken rules he didn't fully understand. Whatever lay ahead, Jack knew it wouldn't be simple. Jack spent the rest of the day exploring his new quarters, trying to make sense of his situation. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth walls that seemed to glow faintly, furniture that adjusted itself to his movements, and a bed so soft it felt like sinking into clouds. Despite the luxury, he couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped. He wasn't sure if he was a guest, a prisoner, or something in between. A servant arrived shortly after the queen left, carrying a tray of food. The dishes were strange. Colorful mounds of jelly-like substances, steaming bowls of what looked like liquid metal, and fruits that pulsed faintly with light. Jack hesitated but eventually tried a small piece of one of the glowing fruits. To his surprise, it tasted sweet, almost floral, and left a warm sensation in his chest. Encouraged, he ate more, though he made sure not to overdo it. He didn't want to risk upsetting his stomach with alien cuisine. As night fell, or at least what Jack assumed was night, since the planet's sky remained dimly lit, the room grew quieter. The glowing walls dimmed slightly, casting a soothing, ambient light. Jack lay on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, his mind racing. What did the queen mean by honoring him? And what responsibilities came with saving her daughter? He drifted off to sleep with these questions whirling in his head. The next morning, a loud chime woke him. Startled, Jack sat up and saw a holographic message hovering in the air. It displayed a series of symbols, followed by a robotic voice saying, "You are summoned to the royal hall." Jack sighed, rubbing his eyes. There was no time to waste. He dressed quickly in the same shimmering robes he had worn the previous day, and followed the directions provided by the translator device. The palace was a maze of corridors and chambers, each more elaborate than the last. Finally, he arrived at a massive set of double doors guarded by two towering warriors. They nodded as he approached, then pushed the doors open. Inside, the queen awaited him, seated on her throne once again. This time, however, she wasn't alone. Dozens of other aliens filled the hall, standing in neat rows. Their armor gleamed, and their masks reflected the light from the glowing crystals above. At the center of the room stood a raised platform, where the queen's daughter now sat. She looked much better, her wounds healed, her glowing patterns bright and vibrant. She smiled faintly when she saw Jack, and he felt a surge of relief knowing she was safe. The queen stood and raised her hands, silencing the murmurs of the crowd. "Today," she announced, her voice echoing through the chamber, "we honor the human who saved my daughter. His actions have earned him a place among us, even if only for a short time." Jack shifted uncomfortably as all eyes turned to him. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially in front of such an imposing audience. The queen stepped down from her platform and walked toward him, stopping just a few feet away. She held out a hand, and one of her attendants placed a small box into her palm. Opening it, she revealed a delicate necklace made of shimmering threads that sparkled like starlight. "This is a token of our gratitude," she said, holding it up for everyone to see. "It signifies your bond with our people. Wear it proudly." Jack bowed his head slightly as she placed the necklace around his neck. It felt surprisingly light, almost weightless, but it radiated warmth against his skin. The crowd erupted into low rhythmic chants, their voices blending together in a haunting melody. When the chanting died down, the queen turned back to Jack, her expression serious. "But gratitude requires reciprocity," she continued. "In our culture, acts of great kindness demand equal acts of respect and unity. You will join me tonight for the Night of Gratitude, a sacred tradition that binds two beings together in mutual understanding." Jack's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" he asked cautiously. The queen tilted her head, studying him. "It means you will spend the evening with me, sharing stories, knowledge, and closeness. It is a ritual of trust and connection." Jack froze, unsure how to respond. Spending the night with the queen sounded far more intimate than he had anticipated. Before he could protest, the queen raised a hand, silencing him. "Do not fear," she said. "This is not about dominance or obligation. It is about forging a bond between our species. Refusing would be an insult to my family and my people." Jack swallowed hard, realizing he had no choice. Whatever this ritual entailed, he would have to face it. Jack left the royal hall feeling more uneasy than ever. The idea of spending a night of gratitude with the queen weighed heavily on his mind. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the thought of being so close to such a powerful and imposing figure made him anxious. As he wandered back to his quarters, he tried to distract himself by observing the alien palace around him. The glowing walls seemed alive, pulsing gently as if breathing in rhythm with the city itself. Strange symbols etched into the floors shimmered faintly underfoot, and Jack wondered if they held some deeper meaning. When he reached his room, he found another servant waiting for him. This time, it was an older alien with intricate patterns covering its skin. The servant gestured for Jack to sit, then placed a tray of food and a small vial of liquid on the table. "For strength," the servant said, pointing to the vial. Its voice was soft and melodic, translated through Jack's device. Jack hesitated but eventually picked up the vial and sniffed it cautiously. It smelled sweet, like honey mixed with something floral. He took a small sip and immediately felt a warm sensation spread through his body, calming his nerves. As he ate, Jack decided he needed answers. He couldn't face this ritual blindly. He had to know more about what it entailed. Using the translator, he asked the servant, "What happens during the night of gratitude?" The servant paused, tilting its head thoughtfully. "It is a sacred tradition," it replied. "A time for unity between two beings. You will share thoughts, stories, and experiences. It is not meant to harm or discomfort." "But why me?" Jack pressed. "I'm just human. I don't belong here." The servant smiled faintly, its glowing patterns shifting slightly. "You saved the princess. That makes you special. The queen sees value in your actions. She wishes to understand your kind better." Jack nodded slowly, though his unease didn't fade. Understanding the queen's intentions didn't make the situation any less intimidating. Still, he resolved to face it head-on. Refusing wasn't an option, not if he wanted to stay alive and maintain the fragile goodwill he had earned. Later that afternoon, Emily, the human diplomat stationed on Scifi 7, arrived unexpectedly. Jack had met her briefly before his crash, and her presence now came as a relief. She entered his quarters with a guarded expression, glancing around the room before closing the door behind her. "I heard about what happened," she said, sitting across from him. "You've caused quite a stir." Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean to. I was just trying to survive." Emily nodded sympathetically. "I know, but saving the princess has put you in a delicate position. The queen's request isn't just ceremonial, it's political. Declining could offend her deeply, maybe even spark conflict." Jack frowned. "So I have no choice." "Not really," Emily admitted. "But you can approach it carefully. Use this as an opportunity. Show them we're not just reckless outsiders. We're capable of respect and cooperation. If you handle this right, it could strengthen relations between our species." Jack leaned back, considering her words. "How do I even prepare for something like this?" Emily smiled faintly. "Be honest. Be respectful. And remember, the queen values honor above all else. If you show sincerity, she'll respect you for it." As Emily left, Jack felt a little more prepared, though still nervous. He spent the rest of the day resting and reflecting on everything that had happened. By evening, servants returned to guide him to the queen's chambers. They led him through winding corridors until they reached a massive set of ornate doors. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped inside. The room was breathtaking, a blend of natural elements and advanced technology. Bioluminescent plants lined the walls, casting a soft glow, while floating orbs of light hovered lazily in the air. In the center of the room stood the queen, her golden armor gleaming softly. She turned to face him, her expression calm but unreadable. "You are ready?" she asked. Jack swallowed hard but nodded. "I am." With that, the night of gratitude began. The queen gestured for Jack to follow her deeper into the chamber. The room was vast, yet it felt intimate, as if the glowing lights and soft hum of energy created a cocoon around them. Jack hesitated for a moment before stepping forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He reminded himself of Emily's advice. Be honest, be respectful. But no amount of preparation could fully calm his nerves. The queen led him to a low platform surrounded by cushions that shimmered like liquid silver. She motioned for him to sit, and he did so cautiously, sinking slightly into the plush surface. The queen settled across from him, her golden armor catching the light from the floating orbs above. For a while, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. It was as if she was giving him time to adjust, to gather his thoughts. Finally, the queen broke the quiet. "Tell me about your world," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Her words were translated smoothly by Jack's device, though her tone carried an unspoken weight. Jack took a deep breath, unsure where to begin. "It's different from here," he started. "We don't have glowing forests or cities that look alive. Our homes are made of stone and metal. We work hard to survive, just like anyone else, but we're always looking for ways to improve." The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You speak of survival and improvement. Do these things bring you peace?" Jack thought about it for a moment. "Sometimes. Other times, they create problems. Humans can be selfish, greedy. We fight over resources, land, even ideas. But we also dream big. We explore, create, and try to understand each other better." The queen nodded slowly, as if weighing his words. "Your kind is complex, fragile, yet full of potential." Jack couldn't help but chuckle nervously. "I guess that's one way to put it." The conversation continued, flowing more naturally as time passed. The queen asked questions about Earth's history, its cultures, and its people. In turn, Jack asked about her world, their traditions, their values, their connection to the glowing patterns that seemed to pulse through everything. He learned that the patterns weren't just decorative. They were a form of communication, a way to share emotions and thoughts without words. At one point, the queen reached out and touched the necklace she had given him earlier. Instantly, Jack felt a warm sensation spread through his body, followed by a rush of images, scenes of her world, glimpses of her life as a leader, moments with her daughter. It was overwhelming but beautiful, like watching a movie made entirely of light and emotion. "This is how we connect," the queen explained, "through trust and shared understanding." Jack nodded, still processing what he had seen. "It's incredible. I've never experienced anything like it." As the night wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The ritual wasn't just about exchanging stories. It was about building a bridge between two vastly different beings. By the time the first hints of dawn began to filter through the translucent walls, Jack felt something he hadn't expected, a sense of connection. The queen wasn't just a ruler or an alien figure. She was someone who cared deeply about her people and their future. When the ritual finally ended, the queen stood and offered Jack a small smile. "You have honored us," she said, "and now you carry a piece of our world with you." Jack bowed his head, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. Whatever fears he had brought into the night had faded, replaced by a newfound respect for the queen, her culture, and himself. The morning after the night of gratitude, Jack woke up in his quarters feeling different. It wasn't just the lingering warmth from the ritual or the glowing necklace resting against his chest. It was something deeper. He had faced his fears, shared parts of himself with a being so unlike him, and come out the other side with a sense of understanding he hadn't expected. For the first time since crashing on Scifi 7, he felt like he belonged, even if only for a little while. A servant arrived shortly after he rose, carrying a tray of food and a message. "The Queen requests your presence in the royal hall," the servant said, its voice calm and melodic. Jack nodded, finishing his meal quickly before following the servant through the palace's winding corridors. The grand chamber was already filled with aliens when he arrived, their glowing patterns shifting softly as they murmured among themselves. At the center of the room stood the Queen, her golden armor gleaming under the light of the floating crystals. When Jack approached, the Queen raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "Today," she began, her voice resonating through the hall, "we celebrate not only the bravery of this human, but also the bond he has forged with our people." She gestured to Jack, who stood awkwardly under the weight of so many eyes. "Through his actions, he has shown us that trust can exist between species, even those separated by vast differences." The Queen turned to Jack, her expression softening slightly. "In recognition of your courage and sincerity, I grant you special privileges. You are now an honorary ally of our realm. My people will assist you in repairing your ship, and you may return to your world with our goodwill." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd, and Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had worried the ritual might end with some kind of demand or obligation, but instead, it seemed to have opened doors, not just for him, but for humanity as a whole. "But there is more," the Queen continued, raising her voice slightly. "This act of kindness must not go unanswered. We offer you a gift, a piece of our technology that will aid your kind in their journey among the stars." With a wave of her hand, two warriors stepped forward, carrying a sleek metallic device that hummed softly with energy. They placed it at Jack's feet and bowed deeply. Jack stared at the object, unsure what to say. I don't know how to thank you," he stammered, bowing his head respectfully. The Queen smiled faintly. "You already have. Your willingness to help my daughter, to face the unknown without fear, has earned you this honor. Use it wisely." As the ceremony concluded, Jack was led back to his quarters, where Emily awaited him. Her eyes widened when she saw the device. "Do you realize what this means?" she asked, her voice trembling with excitement. "This could change everything for us. Faster travel, better communication, maybe even new ways to explore the galaxy." Jack nodded, still processing the enormity of what had happened. "It's not just about the tech," he said quietly. "It's about trust. The Queen didn't have to do any of this, but she did, because I showed her we're worth it." Emily smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done something incredible, Jack. People back home won't believe it." Over the next few days, Jack worked closely with the aliens to repair his ship. They were efficient and skilled, their technology far beyond anything he had ever seen. As they labored, Jack found himself growing closer to them, learning more about their culture and sharing bits of his own. Even the Queen's daughter visited occasionally, her glowing patterns bright with curiosity as she watched him work. Finally, the day came for Jack to leave. The Queen herself accompanied him to the launch site, where his newly repaired ship stood ready for departure. "You carry our hopes with you," she said, her tone warm but firm. "May your journey be safe, and may our paths cross again." Jack bowed deeply, clutching the alien device tightly. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." As the ship lifted off, Jack looked out the window at the shimmering city below. He knew his life, and perhaps the future of humanity, had changed forever. Jack's journey back to Earth was long but peaceful. The aliens had equipped his ship with advanced navigation systems, making the trip smoother and faster than he ever thought possible. As he drifted through the vast emptiness of space, Jack found himself replaying the events on Scifi 7 over and over in his mind. Everything had happened so quickly: the crash, the rescue, the night of gratitude. But it all felt like a dream now, a strange, beautiful, life-changing dream. When he finally reached Earth, his arrival caused a stir. News of his encounter with the alien queen spread quickly, thanks to the reports Emily had sent ahead. By the time Jack landed at a private spaceport, a crowd of reporters and officials was waiting for him. Cameras flashed, and voices shouted questions as he stepped out of the ship, still wearing the shimmering robes gifted by the queen. But Jack barely noticed them. His focus was on the small metallic device tucked safely under his arm, the key to humanity's future among the stars. Government leaders wasted no time bringing Jack to a secure facility. Scientists and engineers swarmed around him, eager to examine the alien technology. At first, they were skeptical, unsure if it would even work. But when they activated it, their skepticism turned to awe. The device was unlike anything they had ever seen, a compact energy source capable of powering entire cities or propelling ships across galaxies in record time. It was a game changer, and everyone knew it. Jack spent weeks working with researchers, explaining everything he had learned from the aliens. He told them about the glowing patterns, the night of gratitude, and the Queen's vision of unity between species. "They're not just advanced," he said during one briefing. "They're wise. They value trust and understanding more than power. If we want to build a relationship with them, we need to show them we can be trusted too." His words resonated deeply. For years, humanity had dreamed of making contact with intelligent alien life, but fears of conflict had always held them back. Now, thanks to Jack's actions, those fears began to fade. Governments around the world started drafting proposals for peaceful cooperation with the alien civilization. Engineers worked tirelessly to adapt the new technology, while diplomats prepared messages of gratitude to send to the Queen of Tyloth 7. In the meantime, Jack became an unexpected hero. His story captured the imagination of millions, sparking hope for a brighter future. Interviews, articles, and even documentaries were made about his adventure. People called him the man who bridged worlds. And though Jack didn't seek fame, he couldn't deny the pride he felt knowing he had made a difference. But despite the attention, Jack often found himself thinking about the Queen and her daughter. He missed the strange beauty of Tyloth 7, the glowing forests, the shimmering cities, the sense of wonder that followed him everywhere. Most of all, he missed the connection he had felt during the night of gratitude. It wasn't just about saving someone. It was about proving that kindness could transcend barriers, even between species. One evening, as he stood on the balcony of his temporary home, gazing up at the stars, Jack made a silent promise. Someday, he would return to Tyloth 7, not as a lost pilot or a reluctant participant in an alien ritual, but as an ambassador for humanity. Until then, he would do everything he could to honor the trust the Queen had placed in him. As the first ships powered by alien technology launched into space, carrying messages of peace and exploration, Jack smiled faintly. Humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun, and he knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. The universe was vast and full of possibilities, and thanks to him, humanity was ready to take its place within it. Months passed, and Jack's life settled into a rhythm he hadn't expected. He was no longer just a pilot. He had become a symbol of hope and change. People looked to him for inspiration, and governments relied on his insights to guide their first steps toward interstellar diplomacy. Yet, despite the recognition, Jack often found himself retreating to quiet moments alone, gazing at the stars or replaying memories of Tyloth 7 in his mind. The alien technology had transformed Earth in ways no one could have predicted. Cities began using the energy source to power homes, schools, and hospitals, reducing reliance on polluting fuels. Space travel became faster and safer, allowing humanity to explore farther than ever before. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the full potential of the gift, while diplomats crafted careful messages to send back to the Queen. These messages were filled with gratitude and promises of peaceful cooperation, all thanks to Jack's courage and the bond he had forged. But for Jack, the changes weren't just external. They were personal. The night of gratitude had left a lasting mark on him. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and even moments of doubt. But through it all, he had discovered something profound: the power of connection. It wasn't about being human or alien, strong or weak. It was about trust, kindness, and the willingness to reach across divides. Those lessons stayed with him every day, shaping how he interacted with others and how he viewed the universe. One evening, as he sat in a small observatory near his home, Jack received an unexpected visitor. It was Emily, the diplomat who had guided him during his time on Scifi 7. She carried a tablet under her arm, her expression unreadable. "We got a response," she said simply, handing him the device. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he read the message displayed on the screen. It was from the Queen herself, translated into English through the same technology they had shared. Her words were brief but meaningful. "Your actions have opened a new chapter between our peoples. We welcome further dialogue and look forward to seeing you again." Jack felt a lump rise in his throat. He hadn't realized how much he longed to hear from them until that moment. The thought of returning to Scifi 7 filled him with both excitement and nervousness. What would the Queen say when she saw him again? How would her people react to humanity's efforts at cooperation? Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? A chance to build something real." Jack nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on the message. "It's more than I hoped for," he admitted. "But it's also a responsibility. If we mess this up, if we break their trust—" "We won't," Emily interrupted firmly. "Not because we're perfect, but because you showed us what's possible. You reminded everyone that kindness matters, even in the face of differences." As the weeks turned into months, plans were made for a delegation to visit Scifi 7. Jack was chosen to lead the group, representing humanity's goodwill and commitment to peace. The journey would be long, but he didn't mind. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a purpose bigger than himself. On the day of departure, Jack stood once again at the edge of a launch pad, staring up at the sleek ship that would carry him back to the stars. This time, he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by scientists, diplomats, and engineers, all united by a shared vision of the future. As the engines roared to life, Jack took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and calm. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but it was also beautiful, brimming with opportunities to learn, grow, and connect. Jack knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he was ready. He had faced the unknown before, and he had come out stronger for it. As the ship ascended into the sky, leaving Earth behind, Jack smiled faintly. Whatever awaited him on Scifi 7, he knew one thing for certain: humanity's place among the stars had only just begun, and he was proud to be part of it.